What's going on, everybody? I'm Josh Meek, the Uber Geek. Welcome to Pretty Dece Director's Cut. This is the first episode, kind of zero, a pilot episode of a longer form Pretty Dece episode where we can go in depth. We can talk more about the news of the week, about movies we saw, about games we're playing, about whatever that we want to talk about. So basically, Pretty Dece as you know and love, just more of it. So this is, as I said, kind of a pilot. We're going to try to do these maybe once every couple weeks. We'll see how it goes. We're just kind of testing the waters here with this first episode. And unlike regular Pretty Dece, where I'm doing the show alone usually, I have brought friends this week. So joining me on the show tonight, we've got my buddy Ross. What's up, Ross?
Hello.
Hello. And of course...
Happy to be here.
Glad.
First time listener, long time talker.
First time, long time. You've been talking for a long time.
I've been talking for a long time. I seldom listen, though.
Great. Awesome. Glad I brought you along then. And my friend Scott is here as well. What's up, Scott?
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
It is good. It is good. So if people maybe don't know us super well, or maybe this might be like kind of the first time you're tuning in because this is a little bit different of a format for Pretty Dece, I thought maybe we could give a brief little rundown about ourselves in terms of like what we're into, where we're coming at kind of pop culture and entertainment from, like what are our expertise, if you will. So I'll start. So, as you guys know, if you've been watching Pretty Dece, I'm kind of into just sort of everything pop culture. I'm a big comic fan, big movie fan, big video game fan. Try to kind of take as much of it in as I can. And then specifically stuff maybe I don't get to talk about on Pretty Dece as often, but I'm a big fan of. I'm a huge pro wrestling fan, which is a super, super fun thing to do. So a lot of that'll come up here and there. And I'm also a big fan of Magic the Gathering, which is a trading card game. So it's kind of all my loves wrapped up in together. If I had to pick one thing to say, like, that's what I am, I would say that I'm a gamer. I think that's probably where my first love comes from in terms of this type of stuff that we talk about. And yeah, just kind of like to play everything, like retro games, that kind of stuff. So, Ross, how about you? What are you into? Where are you coming from?
So I'm pretty much just a poser of what Josh just said. So everything that Josh is into, I find super interesting. I just never know where to start. But I enjoy playing a nice video game more than occasionally. Mm-hmm. I really enjoy movies and how movies tie in with either their parent material, whether that be books or like poems or whatever the source material is that then like blows apart this movie or what it's based upon. Find that to be really neat, and I'll probably have to step up my game a little bit if I'm going to contribute in a relevant way to the podcast. Versus just shouting and things like that. I'm going to try not to shout. Try to keep it happy. Try to keep it nice.
Happy's good.
But yeah, I enjoy... I peruse comic books. I don't think I am as much of a connoisseur as Josh is. I normally pick up whatever he suggests that would be good to do. But yeah, I do enjoy the more analytical side of some of both the video game world and of comic books and lore and how things are kind of structured in a little dash of realism really kind of sells the whole fantasy for me.
Cool. I will say 2017 was a little bit like less of a comic year for me. I feel like I didn't read quite as many comics this year as in previous years. There was just stuff that was just like not as good for me. Like the whole like Secret Empire stuff in Marvel was just kind of lame, and there's some weird stuff going on. But I like, Ross, when you do, like, I think you were selling yourself short. You get very, like, in-depth into specific things. Like, my favorite with you is, like, the Halo lore. Like, you got incredibly in-depth in the Halo lore, and I love talking to you about Halo and you telling me all the various things that I had no idea about. So I love it. I love it when you do a deep dive on something.
I do really enjoy getting into the world of whatever it is, whether it be Halo or video games. Like I started to really get into the Destiny lore before they decided to kick it to the curb.
Decided to stop doing lore.
Yeah, exactly. And like Star Wars, in high school anyway, I had read all of the novels surrounding the different Star Wars.
Yeah.
Movies, not so much the post Jedi, but everything like pre Empire and before. So all of the Mace Windu and Yoda and Count Dooku and all of those kind of prequel novels I was super into, and I mean they kicked a lot of that to the curb again too.
Yeah,
Probably one of my favorite books and favorite trilogies is the Zahn trilogy that they decided to put together. It takes place post Jedi, so it kind of breaks the little rule I just set up before. But it is a fantastic series of books about how, like an admiral of the Empire trying to revive it, and it's quite fun.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll circle back around to Star Wars today. We have a lot of Star Wars stuff to talk about as we're gonna cover The Last Jedi. But Scott, how about you? What kind of stuff are you into? Where are you coming to kind of pop culture stuff from?
I love video games. I've loved video games for forever. I definitely had an Atari 2600.
Nice.
Played my share of Enduro and what is Battlezone with the tanks?
Yeah, that's the like tank game. Yeah, with the that's a super fun
game.
Yeah.
So and I consoles here and there. I certainly haven't played everything under the sun, but I do enjoy getting into whatever I can find, whatever kind of trips my trigger for the moment. I think that I'm a pretty good dabbler. I find different niches or genres that I like and kind of dive in, and then there will be whole other scapes that I just miss. I've never played an Assassin's Creed game or Gears of War. I've played Skyrim. I've put more hours into that game than is really normal for humans, I think.
I mean, we could expand on the new mode that you just found out about, which I was like, why would anybody want to do that? Skyrim.
Exactly. Why would anyone want to put themselves through that? Except there are crazy people out there, and I'm not saying that I'm one of them, who would want to,
but I am.
Go dive back into that game yet again. So I think that there are pockets of gaming that I've really gotten into and psyched to share. I think movies also. I love going to the movies. There's nothing better than walking up, buying a ticket, grabbing some popcorn. I went and saw Darkest Hour last night with Gary Oldman, and I think he may have mumbled his way into an Oscar. I don't know.
See, I was amazed because seeing just like the movie poster, I did not recognize that was Gary Oldman.
Yeah, they really
Commissioner Gordon rolling around this Churchill. That's something special.
I don't think it was CGI. I think that was really the makeup is getting. It's just really good. Like he really. It was a fun movie. Movies, gaming. I live my comic book life vicariously through my partner, so I am surrounded by the entire Sandman collection and Fables.
Oh, nice.
Many other different books that I have read over the shoulder of, but not necessarily have done myself. And I was a Hulkamaniac once upon a time.
Yeah, brother.
But it's been a long... my wrestling memories are, the $1 Million Man and the Ultimate Warrior and the British Bulldog, and
I can get down with all that. Yeah, I'm into it.
The old school.
That's awesome. Yeah. I will say, I think dabbler is the perfect description of how I experience a lot of stuff, because I like kind of knowing about everything sort of that's going on and having a cursory, to be able to talk to anyone about kind of anything media, pop culture wise. But I don't necessarily deep dive on every single game, every single thing. But
every once in a while there's that one thing and you're just
right.
I just will tear it apart and crawl inside, look at all the forums and So.
I'm really wanting that game again. I've missed that thing that you just want to figure out everything there is to know about it, and waiting for any piece of content to drop that's backstory or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's been sorely missing for me for 2017. I've been waiting for something. I was hoping that maybe DC would realize that, and then I would get into these little offshoot characters or something like that throughout the year with Suicide Squad and things like that. That just didn't really do it for me this year.
Yeah.
But anywho,
that's fair. I think. So on the wrestling part, before we jump into the regular show, I hope that Pretty Decent Director's Cut is my avenue sometimes to just gush at you guys about wrestling, so you can just roll your eyes at me, since I don't normally have the avenue for that. So we went the other day, little side story, to a wrestling event that happens here in Indy, in Carmel specifically. It happens in a church. I went to a wrestling show in a church. Which is really weird. Yeah, it's kind of like tangentially related to this church, and they put on this wrestling show. Super fun, super cool. So that's like it's a real weird random side. So it was a snowstorm. It was like 6 inches of snow. Show up at a church, watch a bunch of wrestling. Anyway, super crazy. There was a guy. So one of the wrestlers. The thing I love about wrestling is the ridiculousness of it. So there's a wrestler there that his name is Space Monkey, and the whole conceit is that he is a monkey who went to space and now is back and decided to take up wrestling, I guess. So he has a tail attached to his costume, and it's this huge long tail that drags on the ground, and it becomes part of the match. So like the other wrestler would grab his tail and like stomp on it, and Space Monkey would react as if it was actually his real tail. It was amazing. At one point he like wrapped the tail around the rope and was yanking on it and causing great agony to poor Space Monkey. Does he have like an astronaut suit too? Like I feel like the space part needs to be addressed as well. Yeah, the space part is fully addressed. Don't get me wrong. he comes out in a space suit, which he then takes off and wrestles. He has a helmet on. He's got the full like jumpsuit on. And takes it off and wrestles. Yeah, it's a real thing. So wrestling is full on ridiculous. There was so I was in like the second row. There's a girl in front of me who was just like screaming all night at all the wrestlers. And one of the wrestlers, he like hopped out of the ring at the end, and he was standing right in front of her. And I got a picture. He's like right in front of us. And he's like in her face, and he's like, "If I hear one more word from you, I'm gonna call security, have you taken outside and buried in the snow. I will do it. I will get you buried in the snow."
Wow, that was an interactive performance.
Yeah, it certainly was. Yeah, it's a great thing. Yeah, my wife Jessie hates going to this, honestly, because the first time we went, we've gone twice now. The first time we went, I made her sit in the front row, which she hated, and there was a wrestler who was like he was kind of like hurt, right? So he was like kind of stumbling around, and he like kind of like intentionally tripped and like fell into us and put his like his shoulder, his arm like right on her shoulder, and was like pretending like he was dying. And oh man, it was the worst moment of her life, I think.
This is my nightmare.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's wrestling. So the next one of those is February 2nd. So we're
so this is a reoccurring event, like not just a once a year sort of thing.
No, they seem to be like doing them like about every like month and a half, kind of. So it seems super frequent, it's super cool. I like it because like there's not a lot of wrestling, like local wrestling in Indy. So it's like, it actually is like wrestling that's happening around me, which is kind of cool. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to tell that story out loud to someone about Space Monkey.
My greater regrets in not going to the wrestling that was just down the street from where we went to college, Josh.
Oh, yeah.
I never went to that. I don't know if you ever did or had any good experiences there, but I always knew about it. I just never went.
The one that was like in Madison, or which one are you talking about?
Yeah, the one that was.
This is very specific content for this podcast.
Very niche.
I've been there once. It's very small town. Let's put it that way. It was a little scary. I didn't feel like the safest person in the world going there. There were people taking it pretty seriously. It was a weird event that one night. So I wouldn't maybe recommend that one, but in general, wrestling is a very fun event to attend, because the general wrestling crowd is very different than it used to be back in the day, because everyone who's into wrestling now is like a huge nerd. So everyone is like fully on board with wrestling being 100% fake, and is in it to like see ridiculous stuff like Space Monkey and like, you know, all kinds of stuff like that. Yeah. Like everyone's there because it's like this fun spectacle, and because they're all in on the gag, which is kind of cool. Speaking of being in on the gag, let's jump into stuff we're planning on talking about today. Let's talk about the movie. Let's talk about the movie Bright first. Let's jump into Bright, because Bright's a movie that I desperately need to talk about with people, I think. So if you guys out there listening haven't seen Bright yet, Bright is on Netflix. It is a Netflix original movie. It's really kind of their biggest budget movie. They've done like Adam Sandler movies and stuff so far. So they've done original movies. But I think Bright is sort of their first stab at like going for like the big budget action movie type thing. They got Will Smith in it. Let's see, it's written by Max Landis. So you know, they have some like names attached to this thing. And it's essentially Bad Boys, but there are orcs and elves. That's basically the premise. It is a cop movie with fantasy elements, and it goes even crazier from there. So we've all seen Bright. We will probably get spoilery on Bright. So if you haven't seen it, stop this, go watch it, come back. But
please go watch it.
Yes, definitely go watch it, because this movie.
Don't let us be the only three.
Also, don't miss out on the trailer. If pop up full, you know, the sort of like third of the screen on Netflix, watch the trailer, write down what you think it's going to be about, and then see what it was actually about.
Seal that in an envelope.
Yep, exactly. Because I was totally down for Will Smith as a cop, and then halfway through that trailer, you realize this isn't your normal cop movie.
There was so if everyone who is going to see it is already off now, the point where they're in the like weird burnt out like mythical like crazy church that is also the hideout for the orc biker gang, and they cut to the shaman guy with a deer head and says that was the prophecy. I'm like, what am I watching? Like, what is this movie?
What even just happened?
I can't believe it took you that long. I can't believe that. No.
Well, it was
for me. It was I think I sent you, Josh, the text of what the hell are you making me watch?
Right.
Yeah. When we got to the assassin who had been like magicked into the wall, and like the rib cage is like glowing and like spurting weird liquid.
See, and I thought she was dead for the longest time.
I did too. I thought she was dead. Then like she opened her eyes, and that was maybe the scariest thing I saw in 2017.
My favorite part about that whole thing was how nonchalant everyone was about that situation. Like,
like that was a normal thing to walk into a room and see. Like, what?
Oh, guys, we got a Bright. Oh, that explains it. No,
okay,
doesn't explain it at all. Also, you're super confused when you can't read whatever that script is at the beginning, because I was watching it from my folks' place and they have terrible internet.
Oh.
So it wouldn't buffer the first 3 minutes of the movie. So it was all pixely. Apparently, a Bright is the only person that can hold the wand. That's what I found out from the internet.
Well,
which really ties the movie together, not at all.
Is that what that opening says? Like I don't remember what it even says.
Yeah, it's pretty much like a Bright is the only person that can hold a wand.
Yeah. Well, that comes up in the movie then later too.
It does.
But so that's one of the things I love the most about the movie, is that there are a few things where they explain. They try to do like the tour of the world for you, kind of, when they do like the cop car drive, where they basically show you like, listen, the orcs are like the, you know, like low income, like poverty people. They're in the ghetto, and then they're like, oh, we're driving through Elf Town. It's where all the rich people are. Look at these rich elves, and they kind of like set you up for like what it's all about. And then instant cut to a dragon flying through the sky that they never explain. I love there's so much about this movie where they just hint at things in the world and they never touch it. Like, there's so much, like the Dark Lord stuff.
That was a great like world. I really appreciated the world building. I don't necessarily always need you to give me the entire Wikipedia.
No, yeah.
I don't need the character like talking about elves and I loved the centaur police guy. Like it was just a real quick pan.
right.
I'm like, is that guy is he on a horse? No, he is the
He
horse.
is the horse with his little shin guards.
Yep.
Yeah,
It was amazing.
I really liked that part of it. The world building.
Yeah.
I didn't need the exposition. I got it through the visual. I got it through the dialogue and the attitudes of the characters. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I'm saying I loved that. Like, I really, really appreciate that they told you enough to to tell you what was going on, but there was so much of that movie that they would just start talking about stuff, and then they would just expect you to kind of pick it up as you go. And I thought that was so cool how they did that, where they're they've mentioned the Dark Lord a couple times, and then you just kind of have to understand this thing happened thousands of years ago, and the little hints at the greater world, and little things they mentioned in passing about well, I mean, it's not racism that the entire NFL starting line is orcs. It's just they just mention little things that just make your brain run off into oh my gosh, what is that like in this world? So yeah, I thought that was super well done. For how that went. So this movie is getting, I don't know if you guys have seen any reviews for it. It's critically panned. People are saying it's the worst movie of the year as far as
no.
Wow.
Will Smith has already been in the worst movie of the year. This is not that.
What was which one is the worst movie of the year, Ross?
Did that not come out this year? My scale of time is so messed up.
Are you talking about Suicide Squad, or what are you talking about?
Yes, I am.
Suicide Squad came out in 2016, but it was also one of the best movies that year. So
swing and a miss.
Take that
so
back.
Sorry. There goes a viewer. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I think that fancy movie reviewers kind of missed the point that this was kind of a silly movie that was intentionally supposed to be kind of,
but also hits on some super serious themes, right?
So that was my big thing with it going in, was the first few minutes of it, where they, they sort of set it up and you realize that the orcs are just the black people, and you realize that's what it's going to be. I thought the movie was just going to preach at me about race relations for the entire 2 hours, and I was like, okay, I see what you're doing, but I don't know if I'm going to enjoy this. So when it didn't go that direction, and instead it went into the bizarre, insane direction that it went, it was super surprising. That's one of those write down your prediction of what you think the movie will be to see where it ends up going. I don't know if that's better or not that it didn't go in that direction, but I'm really happy that it didn't go in that super predictable analogy for real world race relations direction.
My prediction that I would have sealed in an envelope would not have included shootout with gangsters and magic elves in a strip club. I'm pretty sure
that one did not make the top 5 for sure.
Things I would have predicted
for sure. But no, what I really want to know about are the feds.
The feds.
I want to know about the feds so bad. There's not been a lot of movies that have been so. I think the reason it's getting panned is because it leaves so many questions open-ended. And I was sort of upset before you told me that they're talking about expanding it into a three miniseries or 3 movies.
Yeah, I heard that there's at least 3 more movies in the works. Or they're definitely talking about more, and I heard the number 3 is what they're talking about right now. So there's definitely going to be more Bright movies. Is what it seems like.
Which I am totally down for, because I was really frustrated with the fact that there were so many open-ended questions.
Yeah.
But I really, somehow it linked together that there was so much normality in the weirdness.
Yeah. That was the one. So the one review that I read, I'm struggling to remember the site, but the guy hated the movie, and he absolutely hated it. And one of his big complaints, I think, was that it was the real world with orcs and elves inserted, and it was well, that's not how the world would have worked. If the world had developed with all of these creatures and all of these species, we wouldn't have Los Angeles. It wouldn't be called Los Angeles. We wouldn't have the NFL. Everything about the world would be different. You can't just take modern world and then throw in some fantasy elements. And I get that point, but that's taking it too seriously, right? That's trying too hard
to wade into it, knowing what you're coming.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And I think there's a definite point to be made there, but then you also want a movie that's going to be relatable and is going to be able to carry the themes that you want to show, and you can't necessarily do that if your mindset going in is how really would this have worked?
Yeah. And like, I mean, the idea that like everything would be foreign is maybe true, but then everything is foreign. So then you have nothing. You have no like they might not have police like we know police to be, right? So like something has to be grounded that then you can sort of plant your flag in and understand sort of where things are coming from and what's happening.
And I think that switch happened for me when they came across the sword guy. Like, it was very much just like, okay, we have orcs, and that's kind of weird. There was the whole tagging intro, and then they're like, it's buddy cop. Like, not really buddy cop, but it's like cop partner movie. Like, lots of in-the-car scenes. And, like, you know, one side of the car versus the other side of the car shots and things like that. And then all of a sudden they get out. He's just, like, casually talking to that deputy, and they draw on this that is just swinging a sword. Like, okay. Like, I'm on board. Where's this going to go?
I love
like
that
dude. No, that didn't do it for me. It was the crazy human dude swinging a sword in the middle of the street that people were legitimately afraid about.
Yeah, I really appreciate that guy one was just a regular human. I really appreciate that. That could have been anything, and it was like, no, we're just gonna make him like a really hairy dude. And then yes, again, in a world where dragons fly over the city, they're scared of a dude with a sword. Pretty great. Yep.
And then not only that, then the feds showed up about it, which made. Like, what is this fancy elf dude doing, and why can't people have magic?
Let's cover the feds, because one of my favorite scenes in the movie was when he hands the dude his ID, and the guy looks shocked, and he's like, "Yeah, that's right, we're the magic feds."
Yeah.
It's like, yep, perfect, great.
This fits, and I'm on board.
Yeah, the fancy elf dude was pretty great. I love they pair the fancy elf dude up with like Harvey Bullock, basically.
Pretty much.
It's like, all right, yeah, I'm on board. Let's do that. One thing I really loved about this movie, and it was there, like, you know, we see a lot of movies with like magic, right? Like fantasy movies always have magic characters, and like fantasy video games, it's always magic users and wizards and stuff. And that almost becomes kind of mundane, right? Like everything has magic, it's always there. I love how this movie treated magic as like something to like truly be terrified of. That everyone knew that like that wand could change the world, could change the city, could change everything, and everyone knew how dangerous it was to touch it. Everyone knew that it needed to either be controlled if you were one of the gangs, or it needed to be taken care of and disposed of properly if you were on the good side. And it was cool to like have like magic in a movie have that much weight to the story. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, I liked the scarcity. You know, we've all played video games forever and a day, and everywhere you look, everyone's got magic. That guy's got a wand. That guy's got a dragon. That guy's got everyone's on an even playing field. I liked the idea of this super rare, elite, hidden, crazy, powerful group of folks, these brights or the wands. Like, it just had this mystique, and like you said, everyone had reverence for it, you know, had all heard stories and had all I could imagine, you know, great historical events, you know, a wand appeared in 1905 in Prague and created a whatever, and that story has lived on through history. You know, that scarcity I thought it was interesting, because you don't necessarily see that when we come across magic or powers in games and movies.
That's totally a thing that I'm sure, like, if you expanded the universe of Bright, right, if you wrote novelizations, I'm sure there would be things like that, where there would be these histories of like, there's this crater in the middle of a city, and like everyone knows that, like in like 1906 it was because, you know, a wand was found or whatever, a Bright showed up, and that's super cool. It's what every video game tells you that you are, and then you realize that you aren't, like in like an MMO or something, right? It's like, you're the only one that can save us, and then you show up in like the town square and you realize there are 50 other people just like you who are there to save the world. It's the exact reverse of all those things.
Yeah.
I think I liked this for the same reason that I liked Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter or Vampire Slayer or whatever it was, which was just like this total like placid normalcy trying to cover up this like weird other world that was happening.
Yeah.
And like there was still the cover up at the end, they're just like, yeah, I don't recall. That didn't happen. It didn't happen, right? Yeah, for sure, unequivocally.
That end scene, let's talk about that, because we have this big movie and there's like some like jokey bits and stuff. It's generally kind of like a very funny movie, and then like this big huge thing happens and you think, all right, it's gonna end, and then we get like a 5-minute scene of just like pure comedy of the, like, you know, the Jacoby orc just spilling his guts about everything that happened, like recounting the whole movie. I laughed so hard during that scene. Like, I could see how that would turn people off, but man, I loved that whole bit of explaining everything that happened.
I think for me, I thought it was okay. I think I unfairly had the expectation of, you know, we've seen Will Smith with a partner in other movies.
Sure.
You know, Martin Lawrence in Bad Boys, Tommy Lee Jones in Men in Black. Those are the two main ones that come to mind just initially. And the things I liked about this pairing was I liked that they weren't necessarily friends. I liked that there was that tension throughout the whole movie. You know, they both kind of, it's not the buddy cop, but there at the end there's that kind of mutual respect. And I think the lines that were meant to be funny, the lines that were meant to be so awkward they were funny, I think I just kept hearkening back to to Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith, and that's an unfair. I think it was an unfair expectation for me, and so it was. But it was. I was happy for Will Smith. I think that trying something like this, you know, that wasn't necessarily probably not very safe. I could imagine sitting with a manager or, you know, a director and like,
I'm going to do what now?
A unicorn? I don't know. Like,
yeah, I mean, like, think of all the things like Will Smith could have done, and then this is the project he chose, you know?
Right.
That's interesting. You know, as far as characters go, I really liked that Will Smith was generally an unlikable person in this movie. Like, he's kind of a jerk the whole time. He's constantly threatening to shoot everyone in the face. I'm not sure if you picked up on that. His threat every single time is, you're going to get shot in the face. Put the thing down until you get shot in the face. I'm going to shoot you in the face. Every time he interacts with someone, he's threatening to shoot them in the face.
It was a really subtle line of dialogue.
I'm going to shoot you in the face. In general, he's like not a good dude, really. I mean, he's not trying to like be inviting for Jacoby. He's not trying to do the right thing. He just wants to like do his job kind of and like, you know, get over it. But he still has like that moral backing of like, listen, I don't like the dude, but we're not going to kill him. And you know what I mean? Like, we're not going to completely do that. So that was cool though. Like, it was an interesting character. And I really liked that Jacoby, the first, you know, orc to make it onto the police force and stuff. I like that he just turns out to be a giant nerd. Like, he's just kind of an idiot. Like, he's like the scene was like, man, only you could make a shootout like awkward. Like, it was really great. It was like, how are your holes? was the question that he how are your holes? Great. Yeah, I really liked the characters and really liked the movie. So yeah,
I'm hoping that they don't carry. I hope it's episodic, and I don't normally say this because it really annoys me when things get episodic. But I'm hoping that Will Smith's character doesn't transfer into the next one.
Oh, you like so it's not the same people in the next one.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that maybe they do a version of like True Detective, only actually pull it off. Where it still falls into like the same general feel and vibe, but a little bit more connected, since it would be like that particular universe, instead of, you know, basically generating all of these different characters from nothing. It would still fit in with like the Brights, and you would understand, and maybe like the minor characters like the feds would be the thread through all of the different movies, but not the main. Like, we would just get glimpses of these events that happen that start to tie in the greater world.
I could 100% see that be the direction that they take, because you know they've built the world here enough to like spin a bunch of stuff off from it, and you have to imagine like Will Smith is expensive. Like, they're not gonna get him probably for like every one of these. Like, it's not gonna be like Bright 10 and Will Smith is still hanging out in the movies. So I could totally see that completely being the conceit for future movies in the Bright universe of like we show you some characters, we tell their little story, it fits into the greater narrative of like what Bright is, and then we move on. That would make a ton of sense to me. Because I mean, really,
for sure, you could definitely see, they painted a big enough picture of the universe that you could really, even outside of law enforcement, it could be learning more about the backstory of the Dark Lord, or just were they witches, I guess? Tika and I don't know if they actually came out, and I can't remember.
I'm not sure if they used the word witch, but yeah, like essentially.
But, or like magic users, because they're so rare. I think they could go off in a couple of different directions and still even tie it together with, I could see the events of this past story, coloring the plot line for an offshoot of some kind.
Sure.
Events that spiraled off. What happens to the wand? We see it kind of go off in the hazmat suit guy's canister. What happened to it? Where does a wand go once it's been discovered?
Right, because I mean, like, it's basically like this, like, way more powerful than a nuclear bomb. So, like, who takes care of that? Where does that get housed? Is it safe? Yeah. Super interesting. So Bright is a fun movie. Don't listen to critics. That's essentially the the end result here. Just go check the movie out. It's worth a watch, I think.
For sure.
Let's move on from Bright. Let's talk about the other big movie that we've all seen now.
The other big movie.
The other big movie. There are two movies that exist right now.
And we chose to lead with the biggest one.
Yes.
And we're just going to follow up with this probably seldom heard of.
You might not have heard of it.
Sleeper movie.
You might not know about it.
It's a little independent film called Star Wars: The Last Jedi, and so it took me a little while to watch Star Wars. I didn't go see it when it first opened, because holy cow, that movie. So the tickets went on sale like a month, like 2 months in advance. And like, I don't know about you guys, but like around here, like most of the theaters are like the like assigned seating type theaters, and they were just like sold out within minutes. And then even like a week later, the tickets were like essentially sold out unless you wanted to sit in like the front row and stuff like that on the sides. And it was nuts, like how it seemed like how popular Star Wars was in terms of like finding tickets. But anyway, that aside. The general vibe that I got going into seeing Star Wars from people who had seen it before I saw it was just like, it was like a weird, like kind of like tepid response where I was like, "Oh man, did you see Star Wars? Like, how was it?" And I would get this just like, "It was fine. Yeah, it was good. It was good." I would get that, right? Just like the voice would raise and be like, "It was okay." I was like, "What happens in this movie that everyone's hating?" So again, spoiler filled discussion here of Star Wars.
Oh, for sure, because you should definitely go into that movie with zero spoilers. Just go in and have a good time.
Definitely
just go watch it. Yeah.
So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Come back here then. But yeah, if you have seen it, so it seems to me the big thing with Star Wars that people weren't into is that essentially questions were set up in The Force Awakens. Things like, who are Rey's parents? What's up with Luke? What's he doing on this island? And then the answers to those questions that we got in Last Jedi, people didn't like. Is that fair?
Before we cannonball into this, can I ask a point of clarity?
Sure.
So, I couldn't remember which Star Wars movie it was, whether it was Rogue One or whether it was The Last Jedi. Did they like get rid of the writers or change the director halfway through for one of the Star Wars, and which one was that?
So that was for the Han Solo movie. That was for Solo, a Star Wars story, or whatever it's called.
Got it.
So we haven't seen that
I
yet.
was wrong on both counts.
Yeah. Was that question because you thought that like the tone was weird or something? Like you felt like
I thought the tone was weird, and it shifts in a weird way in the middle and then comes back, kind of like it had been reshot at some point.
Oh, interesting.
And put back together.
What part? What like when do you?
So it's super like one-linery throughout the entire movie, right? Like there's a lot of quips and jabs,
sure,
but aren't delivered in palatable fashion or like where it fits in.
Okay.
The only one that I really thought fit in because there was a little bit of continuity, which was Luke says on the island that essentially being a Jedi is more than lifting rocks.
Yeah.
And you come to like Rey's reveal at the end, and she's like, yeah, lifting rocks. I was like, okay, like I enjoyed that one, but there were a whole bunch of one-liners with Finn and is it Rose?
Yeah, Rose.
Yeah.
That I was just like, really? And there was, I don't know, it just had this weird, and it could just be that the way that it was, the story was put together, it just felt a really jarring shift every time it came up to make me feel like it had been reshot in some way. So I don't know why I feel that way, but I felt like the Mon Calamari cruiser scenes were really awkwardly done, and for sure the gambling casino city was really awkwardly done.
Yeah, I think that the casino thing was a weird diversion. Like I'm not a huge fan of Finn, is what I've decided. He's a confusing character of why he exists, kind of.
Exactly.
Like I liked in Force Awakens, I think that he's this like kind of completely unheroic character in a world of massive heroes, right? Of people who are greater than the average man at whatever it is they do. You know, you've got Poe, who's this savant as a pilot. You've got Rey, who's this Force user that has these just like innate abilities that are just like manifesting in her. And then you have Finn, who is literally the definition of a regular guy. He's a faceless stormtrooper that just happens to be like more of a coward than all of the rest of them to run away. And that was kind of neat that he was like a different take on like a Star Wars character. And then the fact that like in this movie, like he sticks around and continues to be that character. At least he's consistent, but like I got a little tired of his like running away as a solution to problems and stuff. And his whole subplot with Rose, like the casino is kind of interesting for me to see, but then it feels like nothing comes of it, right? Because they fail essentially. So it just feels like you don't get a lot out of it. And then at the end, it turns into like Rose loves him. And it's like completely unearned as kind of
right.
The kiss was weird. That was so like we really did that. It just came out of nowhere. Like why?
Yeah.
It didn't help the story at all. It didn't like
Finn should have died. Gonna say it. Finn should have died.
Finn should have died.
Finn should have died. That was his character turn of I'm finally going to start making a difference in the world and start to be relevant in some way. And nope, couldn't become a martyr correctly. Jeez, dude.
That was like a turning point in his character, right? That was I'm not going to run away. I'm going to hit this literally head on. Like I'm going to try to. Yeah. I'm going to be selfless about it. And then for her to save him, and for her to have a completely pointless explanation of like we don't do that anymore. I'm like, it's Star Wars. Of course you do. Like everyone, this is what happens in Star Wars.
Where have you been?
Yeah, people sacrifice themselves needlessly. That's the whole point. And then one of my biggest pet peeves in movies is we went through something together, so then I'm suddenly in love with you for no real reason. And it has never been worse than it was in that scene of just like, and then kiss. Like, oh, well, that's weird. I don't know. I guess sure, you're in love. Awesome. Yeah. So that whole like trip to the casino and stuff and back was probably the weakest part for sure.
So that was my question. Was like, was it reshot? Did they change things? Because overall, it just seemed like it didn't know what it wanted to be.
Okay.
Or at least for me, I watched the movie. I enjoyed it, but not to the extent that I was hoping to. Because I thought that this would be the empire of this trilogy. Like, sure. Yeah, it's the second one. But they set up so many questions, purposefully it seemed, in the first one. And then didn't deliver on like diving into any of those questions necessarily. Like definitely you don't have to answer every question that you pose, but you at least have to take a deep dive into one of them.
Okay, so
I feel.
what did you feel like was left from Force Awakens that we didn't get a dive into?
They based an entire movie off of, we need to find Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
To then not explore him more than just the wounded mentor character that he is. I thought it was really well played. I really liked Mark's performance, and I really enjoyed the, like, we just need, like, just let it burn. No, I'm done. But, like, there should have been more to that scene with Rey then, of, like, her seeing, I don't know. I thought there should have been more character development on the island, and maybe cut out the last act, or at least one of the intermediate acts of the movie. Personally.
I mean, I think that I liked the Luke stuff. It's very different than the old extended universe, right? It's very different than the thing where Luke kind of became this kind of like Neo in the Matrix character, and he was an active member in the, you know, new government, and he was this person kind of like running things. And in this, he sort of tries that, it fails once, and, you know, with his academy, and then he just runs off to die. So I get that that's not satisfying for people, but I like that.
See, that was the satisfying part for me.
Okay.
Which was like, he was more upset that he had failed himself, in that, like, he could sense the struggle in between, or in Ben.
Yeah.
And then decided, like, I'm going to kill this dude. Like, it's just going to end. And then that was his, like, crushing revelation. Not that Ben turned to the dark side, but that Luke didn't have faith in any sort of ability to steer him through it, or to say, like, you know, we all have. He made the comment of, like you should, when he was talking with Yoda, that Yoda said something about, it's not just like the strengths that you need to show, it's the weaknesses or the problems or something to that effect.
Yeah.
I thought, like, oh, that's a pretty effective mentoring strategy. Don't always show that your best side. You actually say, like, hey, I really stink at this, and I'm working to get better at it.
Yeah. I mean, I did like that. I did like the entire conversation with Yoda, like when he showed back up, of it really showed kind of like, for as far as Luke has come, like how little he's really kind of like matured, how much he can still be kind of childish in his thinking, and like, you know, like, I'm gonna burn this down. I was like, okay, well, that's fine. Like, that's, you know, it doesn't get us anywhere. Yeah. I mean, I liked that. I liked the Yoda popped in to kind of like, it really harkened back to like old Luke dealing with Yoda for the very first time, and like, you know, that was a cool thing for me. I don't know.
And the indecision in that scene was great. Sorry, Scott.
No, I really liked the Yoda scene. I agree that I felt like I was back in the swamp, and I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I thought that was a neat turn there.
What's in there? Only what you take with you.
Right.
Yeah. And
the one thing about the Rey and Ben and Luke, and not to make too much light, but I had this epiphany moment in the movie, so much so that I had to turn to my partner and say, is this the story of like Tigress, Shifu, and what was Ian McKellen's from Kung Fu Panda? But the whole, like, he had a student and he turned out bad and he tried to end him, but he couldn't. And then another one came along who was never going to be as good. And it's like, wow, this is Kung Fu. This is straight out of Kung Fu Panda.
Kung Fu Panda. Oh my goodness. Well, so much for me being able to watch this second time.
Sorry, I totally ruined it now. No, I think I liked the Luke story well enough. I think I've just never been a huge Mark Hamill acting fan. I thought some of I don't know if it was script or his performance, but a lot of his dialogue was just, I felt a little clunky. I felt like I was just trying to, all right, what happens next?
Yeah,
for him,
I can see that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like everything that he did in the movie. I feel like because it was very, very much like, this isn't his story. It's not about him. He's, you know, he's gonna show back up. He's gonna do his big flashy thing, but like the focus is gonna be on Rey. And I think some people were maybe disappointed that it wasn't just like, all right, now it's the Luke story. We found Luke and he's back. We're gonna do it. So, you know, I appreciate that, like, it didn't just become about Luke. But I agree. There's like maybe some of his dialogue that maybe wasn't amazing or delivered the best. I'm weird with Mark Hamill because he's an amazing Joker, right? Like he can do voice acting just like incredibly. But I feel like sometimes his live action acting is maybe not the strongest. Or maybe he's just better at bad guys, I think, in general too. Like he was on
it's true.
He was on one of those like Criminal Minds shows, or is that
yes.
Yeah.
He was on Criminal Minds.
And he was
he's
like
an amazing bad guy.
Right. He's this incredible over the top, like he knows exactly like where the line is, and like he knows when to like just go right over it to ridiculousness and back and stuff. And he makes a really great bad guy. And then you get like good guy stuff with him, like with Luke, and it's just like, okay, yeah, I mean, sure, I guess. And even in the original trilogy, I don't think Luke Skywalker by any means was like the most well acted character.
No,
I mean, everyone's takeaway from those original movies was like Han Solo's really cool, and then you know, like I mean, right. Look, I don't think anyone would come out of there saying like, you know, like Luke is my favorite, you know, character, my favorite acted character. He was just kind of happened to be the star. I will say so. So moving away from Luke, let's talk about Kylo Ren for a second, because
for sure
I really like where they're heading with him into the third movie of this trilogy. You know, because before we've always had like, all right, we have the Emperor, who's this kind of sort of almost like otherworldly the character who's kind of controlling things, and he's doing it from this throne. And then we have like his right hand, who's the one we actually care about, right? We have like Darth Vader, and he's the one who's kind of the complicated villain that we want to know more about. And I love that in this movie they very quickly like do away with the Emperor like character in Snoke, and just like they put Kylo Ren there. Like he's going to be the one who's calling the shots, but he's also the one who is incredibly
does not know at all what he's doing.
Yeah, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's incredibly emotional, and he's in it for like all of the wrong reasons, and he's just gonna fly off the handle. And I love the fact that like now he is in charge of this. I love that all of the leadership in, you know, the New Order, whatever it's called. Is that right? New Order? First Order?
Yep. Yeah, First Order.
First Order. Yeah. I love that the leadership of the First Order is just ridiculously terrible at what they're doing. You have, what's his name? Huck?
General Hux.
Hux.
Yeah.
You've got Hux, who's just like only in it for like himself looking good and for like, you know, mad props from his boss. And, now you have Kylo Ren at the top, who's just really
He's
again.
No Grand Moff Tarkin.
Yeah, right. Like I love.
Hux is
Yeah, General Hux is no anybody, let alone Grand Moff Tarkin. Certainly not Tarkin. So I like that. I like that all of the bad guys have this like incredibly in-depth kind of personality now. I think that's really cool. Sort of where they've built, and we've never seen someone like Kylo Ren, like a Darth Vader or whatever, with the power that he's going to have going into this last movie, like literally being in charge of everything. And I think that's kind of neat. I also really like on the Kylo Ren front, his kind of arc through this movie. I like that, again, he's like dancing around the, you know, going to the light side. He's dancing around, like having conflict inside of him. Finally, like he and Rey like team up, and you're like, oh my gosh, it happened. Like he came over to the dark side, or he came over to the light side. And then you realize like, oh no, it wasn't about that at all. Like it was about this power grab. It was about like he thinks he's above it all, and he's just in it for himself. And I thought that was a really awesome turn. Like, and it's it's more complex than that. It's not just light and dark. It's I have these completely other goals that are completely unrelated to this. I thought that was neat.
Yeah, I really liked their kind of the dancing around the so much of the Star Wars universe to this point has been there's light and there's dark and that's all there is, and there's no in between, and there's nothing. There are two options. Pick one.
Yep.
And that his Kylo Ren story kind of went off of that, kind of left that model a little bit. Not that he's good. I mean, we still get he's still a bad guy or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think in his mind that he's trying to move past some of those ideas that we've had before.
Yeah.
Which I thought was cool.
Like
I guess I liked his character too. In the Force Awakens, he really I think the emotional outbursts and like the instability, the immaturity got a little bit grating for me and annoying in that first movie. And I like that it's still a part of him, but it wasn't as, it feels like somehow between that movie and now he's grown a little bit. Like he still had his little moment in the elevator where he bashed the helmet, but it seemed like
that was
still
kind of
coloring what he's doing, but he's growing. He's moved on from that character. He's making some changes, and I thought that was good.
It was like that outburst in the elevator where he smashes the helmet was like him putting that away. It was like, this is the one last time I'm gonna let it all out, and then it's like it's done. And like that was kind of a neat like turning point for him as a character, because then he did become a bit more like calculating with dealing with Rey, and then that was like kind of the point where his whole like plan kind of started enacting. With the Snoke stuff, I think that's kind of the point where he decided like sort of where he was gonna go. I really like him as a character in that these outbursts and stuff. I really liked that aspect that he. So often when you get people who are super skilled in the Force, it's very much like I'm always Zen. Look at me, like I'm a kind of outside the world element, and he was pure emotion, like all the way down to his lightsaber, which like crackles and rattles more than everyone else. Like he's just this like thing that is just like brimming over with energy and emotion.
Right.
And I like that aspect of him. And and in dealing with Luke in this movie too, it was like, I want every gun we have on him right now. Just like it's like rage, just pure rage.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I like that he grew in this movie, but I like that they still kind of painted him in that same, the with those same colors essentially. Thought that was neat. I like.
But I thought that they did not reflect that sort of character development in Rey at all.
Yeah, Rey maybe didn't have a ton of like growth in this movie.
No, which was just like, we sent her to the island, essentially, like at least what I gathered. We sent her to the island. Luke said, nah, you get 3 lessons, which is basically me being an old cadre dude, which, okay, I'm good with Luke being an old cadre dude. It's kind of nice that the mentor is not the mentor, role.
Yeah.
But then it was just like, so Rey she had these visions. She went down in this hole. She looked in this mirror, and then she decided to go and see what Kylo was up to. Cool. I was hoping for something more along the lines of what you're saying with Kylo Ren, of being like, it's not just black and white. It's not light side and dark side. There's this gray area in there where you're trying to figure out your way in the world. But they didn't do that for her. They just like, she's going to have this revelation, and that's quizzical and cool. Peace out.
We got a smidge of it, like a tiny little bit of it. When she's first doing the like reaching out to the Force and she sees the hole, and then like Luke says like there was no hesitation, you went straight to the dark side. Like he was like taken aback at her just like going for it for like knowledge almost. Like she wasn't necessarily doing it for like light or dark. It was just like something's out there that I don't know about and I want to go see.
Right.
So like we maybe like tangentially learned a bit about her in that, but yeah, I will totally agree that like we didn't get a ton of like in-depth, figuring out about Rey. Like she's mostly still kind of just a blank slate to me, as far as
a little bit. But it could have been such a great payoff and such a nice sort of weaving thread to the movie, especially when they do the whole reveal about her parents, because like her whole thing, like you said, is curiosity and needing to know.
Yeah.
And like that's what's driven her. That's what drove her throughout the whole first movie.
Yep.
And now she's had the whole Force Awakening thing, and so that should be driving her here. And it should just be like, let that be a payoff for the fan of like, you don't need anyone else to define this for you. You define it for yourself. Done. And let that be the end of her sort of wishy-washy culminating thing, kind of like Luke was in Empire a little bit, right?
I think that's where they're going. Like I think that's why they set up the parent reveal. Like I mean, yeah, it is all knowledge. It's all knowledge gaining, and you know, part of that was a thirst for like, who are my parents? What, you know, like, who am I? Where do I fit in this world? And like part of that was going to Luke, and then part of that was talking to Kylo, and like maybe it's you that can answer some of these questions for me. And then the revelation that then turns out like she kind of knew the whole time that her parents were like nobody, were nothing, that she's nothing in this story. I think then sets up for them like, okay, now she can go be her own person, and maybe like that's where we go with the third movie of, okay, she understands like she's blazing her own path now. And then what does that mean, and how does she do that? Like maybe that's like sort of the way they're booting her off into the next movie.
I hope so, because I think the movie grates on me because it turned into a Peter Jackson movie where it didn't know when it was done. So there are 4 final acts in that movie.
Okay.
Right? Like there's the Casino World scene where we pick up this random hacker dude. There's the Finn and shutting down the terminal scene.
Yep.
That ends up being useless. And anyway, the hacker dude was completely useless. Even though the lady behind me thought it was great. Is that Del Toro?
Yeah, Benicio Del Toro.
Benicio. Like, why do we need Benicio in this? Dear God, let him be the collector and ruin that franchise.
He was, I don't know. He was fine in this. He was superfluous, but I was okay with his presence. He was fine.
There's the throne room.
Yeah.
Scene.
Yeah.
And then there is the Hoth light scene.
The Hoth light scene. Wait, which one's what?
The salt instead of snow.
Oh,
yes.
Gotcha. Hoth.
So they really love the walkers. Can we get walkers in here? Because the entire time I thought that they were going to shut things down after the lightsaber explodes.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, just like drop the curtain, let's walk away, and let me just figure this out on my own. And then I was like, wait, aren't there supposed to be like red dust and big old walkers?
Yeah.
When did that happen? I'm like, oh, it's coming up. Really.
I also thought that too. I was like, this is the world where that happened at. But where? Yeah, I remember thinking that in the movie. I was like, where are they? Like, I'm pretty sure they were supposed to happen. Random aside, I really liked when they got down to that planet. There was like this random base that they realized they had. They show up. There's like a scene that like Poe gives a line to basically explain why the rest of the movie can happen, because he goes, all right, we've got the shields up so they can't shoot us from space. It was like, all right, great, we're good. That's like the scene in every horror movie where the person has to go like, oh, we don't have any cell phone reception. Like,
oh, and don't even get started on Poe. Like, Poe is the biggest in this entire movie, and his character doesn't do a turn whatsoever.
I love Poe in this movie.
Really?
Yes, he was awesome.
Like, he sees that the admiral or whoever takes charge, so it's basically the botanist from Jurassic Park decides she's in charge. And he's like, not what I expected. And then she saves the freaking day by being a complete boss.
Yeah.
One of the best visual scenes in the whole movie.
That was great. That whole and part of me was like, did we really have to wait until they wiped out the entire? Couldn't she have just figured this out like 5 minutes sooner? Let's wait until nearly the entire fleet is wiped out. Maybe I should turn this thing around and zip it through there. Like, that was one of my.
Also,
I don't know.
Also, yeah, I mean, like, she like had everyone abandon ship, and it's like, you're not gonna get away now. It's like, why not now? Why not?
She had that really touching scene with Leia. Like, she knows that this is the end. She's not getting away. Like, the whole, I'm gonna be a decoy. So right when the decoy thing doesn't work out, just turn the ship around.
Yeah.
Like,
Do it. Let's go. Instead, let me just like gaze poignantly out the window while like
Let me
everyone
wait until,
dies.
Like 20 of you have been wiped out, and then I'll do it.
Yeah, like she should have definitely convened with Chris Hemsworth way sooner. Way sooner. What did he do in Star Trek? Oh, right. I'm gonna do that.
So that scene though where she like does the jump through the ship and like when it goes like pure silent, that was so cool. That was
really well done.
The coolest scene in that whole
cool.
movie. I really like, so speaking of like everyone getting away and them getting completely decimated, I like that going into the third movie in this trilogy that now the resistance, the like rebel forces here, essentially like they all like fit on the Millennium Falcon at this point. There's just like a handful of them. I like that it's like been dwindled that far, because that there's a lot they can do with that. They can either like pick right back up where we left off and like, you know, hope that like help comes, or they build their forces somehow, or they start like winning over the galaxy or whatever, or we could do like a time jump and we could go like, all right, so like what happens like 4 years in the future now, and like have they built their forces back up or whatever. I think there's like a lot that can be like done from this point of like kind of like utter decimation. You know, I thought the ending, while being slightly cheesy, was really cool. That we go of like, we're essentially defeated. There's like 10 of us left, but there's hope in the galaxy, and like we get that like last little bit of like the boy. So like kind of like
with the broom lightsaber.
Yeah, with the broom lightsaber. Yeah. So it was kind of neat that like, listen, you may have like won this battle, but because of your own actions, like because of Kylo's own actions, like the sort of the mystique of us, the legend of the rebellion is going to grow even more, because, you know, everyone saw, like all the like rebels and stuff saw Luke get you know, fired on by every gun they had and then stand there and still be fine. So like the legend of the Jedi is going to grow. And
right.
Everyone is going to know, because Kylo has to tell them over and over again that Rey, this untrained, you know, person who's going to become a Jedi, killed Snoke. So then, like, she's going to become this big mystery, this big, like, legendary character.
Right.
Just because of, like, he has to, like, kind of, like, perpetrate that lie. So it's kind of neat that, like the legend grows even though their actual numbers are very low. I thought that was a cool sort of ending.
Yeah, I thought for me generally, I liked it. I enjoyed the movie. There were definitely bright spots. The Order cruiser being destroyed by Laura Dern was really cool. I really liked the battles. I thought they came in a little bit late, but I think overall I guess I would really like a rebel win at some point. You know, we started the movie with them trying to flee with, you know, 4,000, and we ended the movie with them trying to flee with 40.
Yep.
And we did a whole bunch of stuff in between, but it just didn't feel like, I don't know. I would love to see a win.
That's kind of like the lack of a win is sort of the hallmark of this whole new trilogy, because, you know, in the original extended universe, it's like, okay, yeah, like we won, the Empire's defeated, and like now we're like defeating pockets of them, but essentially like we're the New Republic, right? Like we've reformed the government. This trilogy starts and it's like, no, like stuff is still really bad. Like we're still a rebellion. We are not a new government.
That was my question, is like, what are they resisting? So there was the New Republic, which got nuked by the Starkiller base.
Yeah.
In the first one. So, okay. Or what I still was not, and I watched it twice, the Force Awakens twice, trying to figure out, like, what are they resisting? Are they resisting the First Order? If so, why doesn't the New Republic resist the First Order? Why are they doing this together?
Yeah, it's been for a long time now since I've seen The Force Awakens, and I don't remember clearly the answers to those questions.
Yeah, and I'm just a little confused by it, because I'm wanting it to like be a little bit more than what it is right now, and I don't know if that's just because I've really enjoyed the lore around this, or what. Because made the realization that I have never fully enjoyed an entire Star Wars movie. Or the movies aren't my favorite part of the Star Wars universe. I really enjoy fair. Like and the books and the ethos around it, or the video games and things like that. And the concept of Star Wars I really enjoy. But as it is portrayed on the screen, I am not sure I've ever 100% enjoyed.
I will wholeheartedly echo that statement, because like growing up, like I watched Star Wars. I'd seen Star Wars, and I went to see the prequels and stuff as they were coming out. But like the thing that made me love Star Wars as a kid was reading the books. So like I was reading the X-Wing books, like specifically, or were my favorites. Reading like books about Han Solo and stuff, and like all these things that were like delving into the expanded universe were the thing that made me like Star Wars. And yeah, I think there's always something about every Star Wars movie that isn't like my favorite thing that ever happens. I'm remembering now. So the Republic versus the Rebellion. I remember they like had a line trying to explain that in Force Awakens of like, oh, we have to keep it separate so that way the Republic can still like, be diplomatic and all the worlds will trust them. Or there was some weird like throwaway line essentially saying like, we still want to be the underdogs, so we're going to keep these things separate.
Yeah. Which is fine. They just need to come out and say that.
Sure. Yeah.
We just want to structure. I mean, in this one, they seem to kind of merge Empire and Jedi a little bit. But hopefully in the next one, like they run out of movies to smash together. So maybe we just have an original one and really get to have fun there. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think things go real weird in the next movie, because Force Awakens was essentially like number for number it was A New Hope, right? Like they hit so many of those beats. And yeah, this movie was kind of like we're hitting some Empire beats, we're doing some new we're doing some like Return of the Jedi stuff. But the things that they do in this movie make it really hard to make a third one of these. I feel like they have to do some interesting stuff to wrap a story up. They have to figure out what the story is now, because this felt very final in a lot of ways. They have to figure out what the story that they're telling is, what the thread they want to follow through is, and then figure out how to wrap that up in one more movie. I think that means that it'll have to be pretty unique as far as Star Wars stuff goes.
And I hope so. I mean, I hope they give Rey and Kylo they've been setting them up for 2 movies to have another sort of conflict.
Yeah.
And I hope that gets paid off at some point. Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, I like the two of those guys bouncing off each other, now for 2 movies.
For cool. Sure.
Yep. And I would be super happy if they just decided like, meh. There's no this way and that way. It's all, we're just going to go full on gray Jedi and walk away. Yeah. I thought that would have been hilarious for this one of like, yeah, so they're fighting. You just like want to go grab some ramen or something.
Anyway. I mean, that's essentially what Kylo wanted. It was just like, who cares about light side, dark side? You're like, join me. Like, we'll control all this. It'll be okay. Yeah, I think that's like kind of was his goal. Yeah, just to walk off and get some ramen. Yeah. Let's touch on 2 more things, because we brushed over it, and I want to just say it out loud. I loved the revelation that Rey's parents were nobodies, and I loved Kylo's speech about it of like, yeah, this isn't your story. You are nothing to this entire story. Like your parents were nobodies. You're a nobody. I thought that was fantastic. I think that a lot of people hated that like really hard.
Did anyone else see it coming?
I didn't know where they were going to take it. I think and I didn't hate the answer. I think the thing that I was just a little bummed that it seemed like they had spent a lot of energy, innuendo and dialogue and screen time on the question, and then it was answered in 10 seconds. Like there was there wasn't anything that, and it was fine. It seemed a little, they were nobody, and now we're going to move on.
Well,
which was interesting.
Yeah. I think I like the sort of MacGuffin of like the false like thing of like, yeah, like it's this big huge question and it's gonna be meaningful. And for it to be meaningful, she would have had to have been a Skywalker, she would have had to have been a Solo. And I hate it when things are like so tidy like that, know, like she shouldn't be someone who is the savior. I mean, like look at the people who were important in original Star Wars. Like Han Solo was nobody because he was just Han Solo. Anakin Skywalker became this incredibly important character, and he was nobody. He was just a kid who was into pod racing, right? So I like that. It turns out you don't have to have family ties to make you important. You can make you important. I think that was cool.
I think that's what her whole cave, revelation, was hinting towards. I think that the way that they had to deal with all of the different components of this movie, as opposed to the first one, felt very much a Rey-centric story. Like everything was geared towards her.
Yeah.
In that one, and this one, it's kind of going off, and so we never really felt that completion of how did that make Rey feel. Sort of revelation after Kylo busts out with,
"You're right.
Oh yeah, like they're nobody. You're nothing in this." Like there's not a lot of time for her to process that, and there's not a lot of reflection time.
Yeah,
after
yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
So it just feels like a one-off. Like, okay, so that happened.
And we're moving on, and we're not touching it anymore. Like I think that the answer was good. I think, like Lit said, maybe a little introspective reflection from her, or a little.
Well, I'm hoping that the third movie is where we get that. Like and that's probably putting a lot on like that movie's shoulders to like to make me feel good about the things that happen in this movie, but. I really hope that was like sort of a softball over the plate that then that movie can kind of hit that out of the park. But we'll see how that works.
Yeah, I think it's really open. Yeah. Can we just hope that some YouTuber out there will also make the 5-minute video of Chewie being allowed to be sad that his life debt friend died? Can we let Chewie be sad and not mad, but sad? That his best friend in the whole galaxy died in the last movie.
It needs Chewie to grieve. He needs him to recognize.
I love me some Chewbacca. Love me some Chewbacca. And in the original screenplay, wasn't supposed to be Ewoks, was supposed to be Wookiees. So I love me some arboreal Wookiees. But no, they just move over the fact that Chewbacca lost his best friend because everybody else is more important. We have to stick him with the consumer pricing report character.
That is true. Like Chewbacca essentially lost his life partner, right? Like he didn't just lose his best friend; he lost his partner
for 50 years or however long. I mean, they were partners. Yeah,
like the whole thing around the Wookiee life debt is that he pledged himself to Han Solo for whatever Han did for him, however they've shaped it in this universe, is like, yep, I'm your dude forever.
And then he had to lose that.
And we never got to reflect on that. I realized they had a lot of parts, and that I really enjoy Chewie, and so I was just sad that they didn't even give him
They had a couple
decompress that others had in this movie.
It would have been cool just to have like a long shot of him in the cockpit and just like staring at Han's seat, like empty or something.
Yeah,
just like a real moment, just melancholy, just like he's real sad too. No one stops to ask about Chewie, but look, he's real sad.
Yep, but no. Instead, we put in a screaming pygmy, whatever guinea pig. That seat.
So are you telling me, Ross, that you're definitely con on Porg in the pro and con column for Porgs?
Perhaps we should reconsider the Porgs.
Is that the title to your essay?
I think KFC is missing out on a really golden sponsorship opportunity here.
Listen, the Porgs were not my favorite part of the movie, but I really appreciate that they did the whole like Chewie cooked a Porg thing. I like that they went there. I saw some concept art with the Porgs that when they were playing with they were down by the lightsaber, one of them was supposed to have turned it on and incinerated one of the others, just ran it straight through. So if you lean on the porgs in that direction of like they constantly get cooked, they constantly get eaten, they constantly get incinerated, I would have been so on board with porgs.
Would have definitely been more on board with the porgs. But they just they leaned into them so hard before you even knew what they were.
Yeah.
And then I was like, really, do we need another round of Ewoks? Apparently we do. This movie's not going to make enough money with its Star Wars branded citrus fruit in my grocery store. We need the porg. Okay, great.
Yeah, the fact that they were selling like plushies of these things before you essentially you'd even seen them in a trailer, you knew it's like, oh, this is just gonna be so paint by numbers, like just kids, you know.
But they like let's just have the porgs and annihilate themselves in everything possible.
Yeah.
Even if they had been like two hopping on the back of the fog as it fires up, they just they do the full on Wile E. Coyote where they turn like crisp and then they just puff out that smoke and fall down. Right. Yep. I would have been on board for that.
Right. I want them to be just lemmings, just constantly dead, like dead by the millions in every movie. And we did see that, like, essentially there is an infestation of them on the Falcon now, right? Like they're everywhere in that ship.
Right.
So maybe in the next movie we just continue killing porgs. That's all I want. It's just I don't want them just to be biting through wires and just electrocute itself, and just everything's just dead porgs.
Porg.
The only good porg is a dead porg.
And it didn't help that I just got back from Disney right before this, and everything in every store was like porg central. Like
I can imagine.
Chirp or whatever they do was everywhere. Like I'm so over the porgs. I haven't even seen this movie, and I'm so over the porgs.
Oh man! So I'm reading your notes, Ross, here for Star Wars. I have one more question. What does a movie made for my mom mean?
So I feel like this movie is a mile wide and an inch deep.
Okay.
Like it hit all. So
wow! Shots fired at Ross's mom.
Yes. But as far as her Star Wars is concerned, because like you said, as she came out of she was very much a fan of the original trilogy. She liked Luke, Han, and Leia, and this movie plucked each of those chords.
Sure.
Right?
Okay.
Like, we had Han, we did the little remembrance with Leia and people, and then you had Leia. We haven't even gotten to her weirdness.
Oh, yeah.
But, and then, like, we have Luke, and so, like, all of those notes were struck, and so she super enjoyed it. She was willing to, like, go back around, literally walk out of the theater, go pay another ticket, and walk right back in on Christmas Day.
Wow.
Yeah. Nice. She asked if we really wanted to go get dinner. I was like, yeah, I'm a little hungry. I don't want to watch this movie again, like, immediately. I need some digestion time.
That's fantastic.
So that is what that note means. Of like, it didn't... I wanted it to investigate some of these deeper, long-running through the lore issues of like, what does it really mean to be a Jedi? And how does the light and the dark side work to be balanced? How does balance work if you have, are you going to have two legions of medium powered people that fight for light and dark, or you just have like these two beacon users of the super dark side, the super light side, or is all of that made up and it kind of blends in the middle? But no, like Princess Leia was in it. Mom got to see Mark Hamill go ham.
Yep.
So she was pretty happy. She's like, oh, I've been waiting for that for like 30 years for him to actually do something.
That's awesome.
Like, great, Mom. So happy.
Let's the briefest of moments, let's touch on the General Organa, the Leia in space moment.
Oh my god.
That was a huge mistake, right? They should have. That was the worst scene in the movie.
It was. Oh god. Okay, I've been wanting to hear this, out of the got me out of the movie. I love looking at movies. I love talking about movies. I love critiquing movies. But when I'm generally when I'm sitting in there watching a movie, the movie has to be really bad for me to say that was a terrible movie.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good for the podcast, but I will be the guy who's like, was it like people come, hey Scott, how was the movie? I'm like, and they'll go see it. Like, that was terrible. How did you? Because I generally I try to just enjoy.
First of all, that is 100% me too. I love loving things. I love Suicide Squad. Carry on. That's all.
Yep. I'm so glad you made me out to be the bad guy.
You are
like slash and slay things right out of the movie theater. Thank you so much.
But the two moments that I hate being brought out of enjoying the movie feeling, and I understand it's a big science fiction movie, but the space, it's a vacuum. There's no that, and please, bombs cannot fall in space. You cannot fall in space. There's no falling. Bombs can't fall.
No, but the gravitational pull of the Star Destroyer.
Fall in space.
I mean, Star Wars has never.
That's it. That's all I had.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with both of those. Star Wars, I guess, has never been very accurate in their space physics and the realities of space, and the scene where they cut the sound on the explosion in space was so jarring because they've never done that before ever.
There's no sound in space. That was awesome. That was.
But yeah, the Carrie Fisher just supermaning through space was the worst.
So my whole thought was so she could do that, and we went through an entire movie to find Luke, who doesn't want to do that anymore.
Right. She can do that, and I was reading explanations about it online. People were saying it's adrenaline is pumping, and human beings can do extraordinary things, right? Like a mom can lift a car off her child or something, things like that. So that was her tapping into her innate force abilities, and she can do incredible things that she couldn't normally do. I was okay, but also we had to write Carrie Fisher out somehow. Wouldn't that have been a fine way to do it? I mean, instead of having her fly through space,
they totally could have edited. They could have. I mean, they would have had to change a lot, obviously.
Sure,
but that would have been a nice I don't know.
This movie felt so many times like perfect points to just beautifully write her out and have a nice little poignant thing at the end, but instead it was just I'm back so many times in this movie. It was just she flies out in space, and I was oh, so this is how they're doing it, and then she just Supermans across my screen, and I was wait, what? And then she's out because the other lady takes over, and it's okay, so Leia's gone, and maybe we just won't see her anymore. And then all of a sudden she shoots Poe. I was okay, so I guess we're back now. All right, here we go.
Yep, because I thought they were just going to leave her.
Me too.
And it just fade away, and it would just be a never answered question.
Yeah. So now they have to answer that somehow. They have to either
there's a whole ending scene with the dice, and somehow that's a thing.
Yeah.
I had to go and scour for YouTube videos where someone explained the dice to me.
Wait,
and
what?
They're there.
Oh,
Are they?
I know what you're talking about.
I've been wondering. I haven't gone back and watched the old to see if.
Yeah, they are there in one scene in A New Hope. I'm really, in one scene? Okay, great.
That's good. That's nice.
Anyway, because that's what I'm thinking because my then question is, so at all these times to write Carrie Fisher out, and then you get her at the end, and somehow she believes that the dice are there, or she knows they're not, and is looking at the projection of the dice that are fake. And then they disappear, which is super powerful, but still I'm just so confused.
Perfect.
And I think that is my overall impression of The Force Awakens.
Just so confused.
So confused. Parts of it were so great.
Yeah, I definitely overall I really liked the movie. I came out being super jazzed about it. It is what it is, as it were.
So top points for me was that they didn't go with the classic mentor-mentee.
Yep.
Master
I appreciate
apprentice.
That.
I like that Luke pushed back on that. I enjoyed Mark Hamill in this movie, but I thought that he was just his Joker voice was coming through too much, and it's just can we just let him do the Joker? This would be great. Hard right turn, and we just go full on Batman in this movie.
he's just the
fine. Yep, I'm fine. Just let it happen.
I really liked it. I had fun with it. I hope there's more lightsabers and space battles in the next one, but it was good.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's wrap this podcast up with let's round it out here. I want to talk about just sort of, best of the year stuff as we are closing out 2017 here. I put up my top 10 movies, top 10 games show, which if you guys are subscribed to Pretty Decent, you can check those out. So, those were my experiences for the year. So I'd love to hear what you guys thought, just in general, like the best stuff you watched this year, the best stuff you played this year. If you are a book reader, best stuff you read. Is there anything about this year in pop culture that you enjoyed and want to tell the world about?
Then we'll let Scott go first.
Sure.
Best of. So I really dug the game of the year vid that you did.
Oh, thank you,
Josh, and it got me thinking about games. I don't even know if I played 10 brand new games of the year, but I really thought gaming in general, I really did pay a lot of attention to the news, and I watched a lot of gameplay of different things this year, and it was just 2017 was a crazy year. We had the debacle that was Star Wars Battlefront 2, the debacle that was Mass Effect Andromeda. Like, there was some real loved content out there that just crashed and burned, and then there was the complete opposite end of the spectrum, the Zelda Breath of the Wilds and the Horizon Zero Dawn, and a lot of really cool
and Arms.
Arms
out of nowhere.
I haven't played it, but it looks cool. Like, there was some fun. So I thought gaming in 2017 was really interesting.
Yeah, it was a big year. Like, I mean, and then you have the stuff like, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds coming out of nowhere, just to like blow up the world essentially. Like, it's the most streamed thing on Twitch usually and stuff. Like, it was a big year for like big new games to make big splashes, which is awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I think any best of that I would have to say about 2017, I really enjoyed watching Nier Automata. I have a couple of streamers that I follow, and it's this crazy, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's insane. I guess it's kind of I don't even know how to describe it. It's a third person, it's a first person, it's a top-down shooter. They cram all these different genres together, and the art style of it I really enjoyed for being a game that is mostly gray. I thought they did a really good job. It was a lot of fun to watch. I'm a little tempted to try and play it at some point when it goes on sale, but it also, like, the skill required to play it well looks pretty top tier, and I'm definitely not going to fit into that category, but I think that game looked really cool. Also, Neo, I had a lot of fun watching that one. Again, the skill required to do it well, I think, would be a little lacking on my part, but I think that one was really everyone the Dark Souls, it's like a new Dark Souls, and but I think it did its own thing as well. I mean, the loot system in that one, how differently you can customize yourself visually, how differently you can customize the gameplay, range and up close and fast and slow play, and that was a really fun one to take a look at. And I have to give a little shout out, because I had so much fun playing it, the little Pan game from the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
Was a crazy. I was definitely one of those, like, I had no idea what it was. I saw the art, the vector art style of it, and I was like, I need to see what this is. It's $5. I could buy coffee or I can play this game. I spent 3-4 hours playing through this really weird puzzle vector art game with no
words,
no language, no words, they just plop you down and say, okay, here you go. And that was a really fun, it was the best $5 I spent in 2017.
Nice.
For sure.
So, two things. One, you mentioned Horizon Zero Dawn and Nier, and those are like my two big misses for this year. Like, the two big games that like I wanted to play and just didn't get around to playing this year, because Horizon Zero Dawn looks amazing, and the expansion that came out also looks amazing. And I need, at some point in 2018, I need to just like kill some Robo Dinos. Like, I need to make sure that happens. And Nier Automata, I just kept hearing good things over and over and over about that game. You know, I didn't play the first Nier, but I know that they're like not like super related necessarily. But yeah, that's a game that I need to for sure check out because I kept hearing over and over about how good that was. You mentioned watching games, and 2017 was really the year that like I fully understood like Twitch streamers and like watching Twitch streamers as a replacement for playing games sometimes, because I kind of got into it this year because before this year I'd been like, I don't really get it, like I don't really necessarily want to watch someone play a game when I can just go play a game myself. And it was stuff like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds and stuff like Fortnite that really made me understand, because those games, like, they're stressful, they're hard, and like me playing one of those games is just me running around having a dress-up simulator while I like look for armor, and then suddenly getting shot in the back and not knowing what happened. And like watching someone who's actually like good at it play it is like a whole different experience, and you get to kind of like live vicariously as if you're like watching kind of like a horror movie of just like, oh my gosh, like there's somebody in there, be careful, and like you get to like do that with them. So like I fully got into like the world of Twitch streaming and stuff, and understood it a bit more, and found streamers that I liked and stuff, and that has been kind of like a big thing in gaming for me this year. So yeah. How about you, Ross?
So my 2017 has been really weird, right? Like I finished up school, so I had been on a very limited diet of pop culture and movies and video games for a while. So I've been playing a little bit of catch up this year.
Yeah.
Definitely the games that I watched a little bit on Twitch that just seemed like I would really enjoy, but I don't own the console for, were it just went out of Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yep.
I feel like I would love that sort of game, and Zelda. Zelda, I'm working on acquiring the console for that.
Yeah.
So that I can play it, because I love me some Zelda, and I feel like I've allowed enough time in between iterations. I did, for some reason, like my folks went through this phase where they had a Wii for whatever reason. I don't know why.
Perfect.
They didn't have it when I lived with them.
Like
Now,
that seems
and
incredibly.
Then they did a few years ago, so I played Twilight, and it was like okay, but I just like played half of it on Christmas break or something.
Yeah.
And so I feel like there's been enough time, and I've let Zelda that I would be willing to get into, even if they followed the original formula, and then they've since tweaked it to make it more interesting and puzzly and things like that. I think it could be really fun to play, kind of like a couch co-op game of like have somebody help you with the puzzles and things, like, you know, a not siloed experience. I think, Josh, you were saying that you and your wife had played it that way.
Yep, that's exactly how we did it. It was a kind of a joint thing. Like it became this kind of like weird like family activity of like, all right, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna like make decisions together, and like we're gonna decide like where to go next together, and you know, she's gonna make fun of me when I die constantly, and it became this like thing that was essentially like a co-op game without, you know, it being co-op, which is kind of a weird thing, right? Because it is this like singular solo RPG that actually like worked out really well as a co-op.
When I had in my old apartment for grad school, my girlfriend came over and I was playing Darksiders, I think.
Yeah.
Where like you're the god of war,
which is basically Zelda.
Yep. You're one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and that's exactly what would help you with the puzzles. Like, why don't you go there? Like, I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to walk off the edge. Like, yes, I know that. Thanks so much.
Yeah. So yeah,
I think Zelda would be really fun, but it's been like slowly saving up to buy a console, which I'm sure I will find excuses to buy games for, but essentially trying to talk myself into purchasing a console for one game.
Yeah, it's if a game could ever do it, Zelda is definitely that game. But yeah, that is sometimes hard to make that leap.
Just recently, so this might be a hard turn from a topic, but I really enjoy video game soundtracks.
Yep, I was gonna ask you about this. Yep.
Yes, and I was super stoked to find a random link on a certain Reddit website.
Okay.
that led me to the music of the spheres. I don't know if either of you are familiar with that. I think probably Scott is.
Let's assume that no one listening is, though, because this is an interesting story.
So the music of the Spheres is Martin O'Donnell.
Good old Marty.
His original score. If you don't know who Martin O'Donnell is, he is the guy that wrote the Halo soundtracks. So he is the guy behind Bungie's first 3 Halo games. He did Halo Reach, and he did a lot of the score on Destiny. So through whatever set of circumstances, however you feel about the Bungie machine, in the first game, lots of reshuffling happened, both in terms of personnel and in story, and the music of the Spheres got cut. Like, parts of it got chopped up and rearranged and turned into different soundtracks, and it finally rose to the surface. And this is an album that had essentially been given out at like gaming conventions and tech conferences and things like that. Like, iTunes recognized it. You could search for it. You just couldn't ever purchase it because it never got fully released. Yeah. And it surfaced over Christmas break. And I find it to be absolutely delightful, both being a fan of the original Destiny game and played thousands upon thousands of hours of it. It's actually how Scott and I met, which is kind of a weird internet relationship that has turned out pretty cool. Versus the IRL one that turned into an internet relationship when Josh and I were no longer proximal. But the music of the Spheres is so much fun, and there's a whole lot of emotion through it, and you could just think about what had been a little bit, or what might have been a little bit with this soundtrack.
It's also a collaboration with Paul McCartney, too, which is even a weirder aspect.
It is. Which is hilarious because they turn like Paul McCartney's contribution into a super weird track in the original Destiny. It's like part of the jukebox in the back of this bar that sometimes this NPC visits.
Oh, weird. I didn't know about that.
It's not in the game in any sort of like upfront fashion. It's kind of slid in there on the backside. But no, it's definitely Paul McCartney.
Oh. So it's certainly like his. So, you know, yeah, he was a big thing in the, you know, Halo scores, and the Halo scores were like for people who aren't into like music scores and like movie scores and stuff, like the Halo ones were like very recognizable. Like they were like the Star Trek theme of video games, and you know, that was it was a big thing, and like knowing his name and stuff is not surprising. He's a massive name, or was a massive name in game music. So, you know, his like falling out with Bungie and like leading to this not actually getting released was big news at the time. So it's kind of cool all these years later to like have like, you know, have it get leaked but be able to like hear it. That's kind of neat.
So I've been listening to that periodically. So strangely, it is one of the plus sides to going back to work, in that I will have to wear my big poofy headphones.
There you go.
And have something to listen to without words, and it's going to be that on the top of the queue.
I also really appreciate how happy he was that it got leaked, because his Twitter account was just like he retweeted something, and because someone like sent him a link. Which was just an image of them listening to it, and he like retweeted it. And was like, I don't even know how you got this, but that's awesome. Basically, was his message. And then it clearly like someone filled him in, because then he was like tagging the person who leaked it, and he was like thanking them, and like he was super excited. It was like really cute how adorably excited he was.
If you listen to, because like he got interviewed a couple times after the game, as a really nice score. How was it to work on it? He always remained super professional, but you could tell he was just really bummed by the final product.
Yeah.
And he's like, so what got put out is originally intended, what I think more of in the sense of like an old school symphony that builds on one another, and there's movements in it, and so I have all these different pieces and they build on one another and blah blah blah. And like it just never came, like they chopped, sliced and diced it and things like that. Like if you're into the lore of Destiny and you look at the original soundtrack, there's lots of little hints as to like what might have been in there. In this one, you can like feel these movements and the tension and things like that kind of fit in with some of the Halo flavors of like huge action, and then like, oh, there's this lull, so this must have been a revelation or you know, component, something like that. I don't know. I'm a little geeky with my soundtracks, but I really enjoyed listening to it on the car ride home. So, I don't know if my girlfriend did, but I did.
She's like, this is the worst.
I was driving, so that evened itself out pretty easy.
There you go.
It's like when I, you know, force my wife to listen to like the Giant Bombcast for hours on end on road trips. You know, it's the same thing. Put up with us. Awesome.
I think
So
those are my big ones coming out.
That's
Other
good.
games that like games and sorts of things. Video games are most of my pop culture diet nowadays. Game that I am terrible at, but had a blast playing when you did your 24-hour stream.
Yeah.
Is Cuphead. Even though we never played it together, just being able to commentate what was happening to me and how terrible I am was great. I have not picked it up since then, but I did enjoy being terrible at that game.
That's my exact experience with Cuphead as well. I was like, man, I really enjoyed like yelling at you about how terrible it was going, and the game's amazing, and like I've watched some streams of it stuff, and it's great. I'm just so bad at it that I couldn't in good conscience put it on my list because it was like I made it through like 2 levels in this game. I can't do it. But
No.
I'm still beating my head against like every night. Like it's not every night, but like just pretty consistently, a couple of times a week. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna sit down for an hour. I'm like, I'm gonna work on this one. I've worked my way like halfway through the second
Nice.
island, but it's the slowest going ever.
I haven't made it through the introductory garden.
yeah.
I have not beat a single level of that game.
Like when I was playing it that day with Ross, it was such a stressful experience. Like my hands were shaking, my palms were sweating. It was like I have to stop. Like I'm going to like kill myself. I have to keep playing video games for like hours more. Like I can't play this game anymore. But gosh, what a cool game! Yeah, like that's such a neat little thing that came out. That's one of those games people are going to be talking about for years. People are going to continue to like speed run and play for years and years and years because it's just so unique.
Art's great.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just a lot of fun. Briefly for movies, Thor Ragnarok was fun. I enjoyed that movie thoroughly.
Yep.
Wonder Woman was probably my favorite character.
Yeah, she was great.
And
Definitely.
favorite superhero performance of 2017. And then as far as looking ahead to 2018, maybe a role in which we can see a fully fledged John Boyega bring his acting prowess to a hallowed franchise in Pacific Rim 2.
Yeah, finally, John Boyega is
man.
going to be acting in a good franchise. Let's come on. Star Wars is okay, but like Pacific Rim, yeah, let's do that.
Pacific Rim.
I'm on
so
board.
nervous for that movie.
I'm on board. I really hope they understand the thing about Pacific Rim. Maybe. Listen, if Fast and the Furious can knock it out of the park 9 times, then I have faith that Pacific Rim.
Now I'm not quite so confident in Pacific Rim.
Don't even get me started. I will give you my manifesto.
I know, again, and I love it, but I just think this is where our nerddom differs. We divert pretty hard on the Fast and Furious franchise.
That we do. I think from those trailers, like the little bits they put out of that, it seems like they know exactly what is up with Pacific Rim. I'm not sure if they can deliver on it, but they fully understand how
It's robots versus
yes
giant monsters.
Yeah.
They fully
And
get
I hope
that.
they don't fall into the Guardians of the Galaxy. First one, they knew what they were about, and they tried to replicate it and couldn't. The first one of Pacific Rim, like, yeah, they pretty clearly knew what they're about. They're not selling you anything that's not literally on the cover of the box.
Yeah.
Giant robot, giant monster, they're probably going to fight. But that's what they delivered on. I just hope that they stick true and like don't try to make it some sort of well-intentioned, life lesson. Like, no, I just want to see giant robots fight giant monsters.
Right on. All right, I think that's gonna do it then for us, gentlemen. So we will wrap it up. Ross, where can the people find you on the internet if you want to, I don't know, shout out your social or something, as the kids do?
As the kids do. Well, you could find me on the Twitter at @LITU_87 if you would like to bug me there.
Wonderful. How about you, Scott?
Folks can find me on Twitter at Schmizmar9. That's SCHMIZMAR9. And you can also come check out some gameplay on twitch.tv/Schmizmar9.
Awesome. Hear that, Ross? He has 2 things to shout out.
He does, and I have one. I'm just so afraid people actually show up.
Desperately afraid someone will actually
gotta
watch.
put it out there.
I do. So I do. I need to find a schedule. See, Scott actually has a schedule, and he's pseudo-professional about it. I tend to stream whenever Scott streams, so I do Twitch occasionally, but you can probably just go and have a much more enjoyable experience with Scott.
What are you doing counter-programming Scott over here? What's
No, we're literally in the same game, playing the same level.
You're just the WCW to his WWF, just like same time.
I don't know.
I'm Transformers.
He's the GoBots. He's definitely the GoBots.
GoBots. Whatever the Play School equivalent would be.
As far as Pretty Dece in general, make sure that you like Pretty Dece on Facebook, facebook.com/PrettyDeceShow. Follow me /the show on Twitter @PrettyDeceShow. Visit PrettyDeceShow.com for all the video content. And if you are listening on YouTube, make sure you subscribe there. If you are listening in the podcast, please subscribe to the podcast and review. That definitely helps us out a ton. We'll be back again tomorrow for another regularly scheduled episode of Pretty Dece. We'll be back for another one of these probably in about 2 weeks. We'll see kind of when schedules align. We wanted to get this one out the door. So thanks very much for joining us. We'll be back later. Peace.
Pretty Dece, here we go.
Facebook.com/PrettyDeceShow.
You're not recording this, right?
Oh, I totally am. Yeah, this is an outtake for sure.
It's time to geek out with Josh or host.
This is great. Well done, gentlemen.
Welcome to Pretty Dece. I am Josh Meek, the Uber Geek.
You just do the whole episode.
Josh, you don't even need to be here. Yeah. You can totally just, you've got some errands you got to run.
Yeah.
Or...
I'll just pop in like 15 minutes in after you guys have the whole intro out of the way. It'll be great.